Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of wrapping up a huge Capitals win, 4-2 over the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference first round. The Capitals, they got off, honestly, to a bit of a slow start in this one. The Hurricanes actually had the first 6 shots on net in the game. But the thing about this Capitals team, and we talked about it a lot in the series preview, is that they have game-breaking talent coming out of their yin-yang, and they only need one shot to beat you. And so that's pretty much exactly what happened to start off this series. The Canes, like I said, they had the first 6 shots on net before Nicklas Backstrom. He scores on the Caps' second shot on goal of the series. It was a beautiful shot, total snipe. Some people are suggesting that maybe perhaps Peter Mrazek should have stopped it, as he took the shot almost as soon as he stepped over the blue line. So I can agree with that to an extent. It's a stoppable goal because of the distance that it had to travel. But at the same time, it was a hell of a shot. Not only the shot itself, but also the fact that he used the Canes player as a perfect screen. I don't think Mrazek even saw it until it had already whipped past his shoulder there. So that goal got the Caps going, and it was pretty much all Capitals for the rest of the first period. The Canes also apparently did not get our pre-series memo that the Capitals have an extremely dangerous power play because they took a couple of stupid penalties in the first period and the Caps scored on both of them. Basically, Backstrom's second goal of the game, he scores on the power play. What a play, honestly. Kuznetsov with just a beautiful pass finds Backstrom down low. They do this a lot. Because everybody's always looking for Ovechkin, all penalty killers, always looking for Ovechkin. So sometimes what they'll do is they sneak Backstrom down low, just kind of right around the crease, right around the blue paint there. And he finds the back door down there, and then Kuznetsov, he'll kind of look over to Ovechkin as if he's going to pass it over to Ovi, and then he'll find Backstrom down low instead. They've done it quite a few times. It works perfectly because the penalty killers, like I said, are always so worried about Ovechkin. They're completely distracted by number 8, hovering around over in the left faceoff circle, and it's 5-on-4, so somebody's bound to be open, and that's what happened on this goal. So Backstrom, he's not going to miss that one. He puts it past Peter Mrazek for the Capitals' second goal of the game. Those goals, they were only about 3 minutes apart, Backstrom's first and Backstrom's second, so he's off to a very good start in this series. And then the third goal for the Caps comes from none other than Alexander the Great. He scores on the power play as well. Like I said, the Caps, they scored on their first 2 power plays of the series. Hurricanes, again, apparently did not get the memo that you do not want to put this Capitals team on the power play. So Ovechkin came sneaking in, hammered the puck through Mrazek's 5-hole, and his celebration was really something to behold. You think Ovi's fired up? You think he wants to go back-to-back? Because I would say that his celebration says that he is pretty pumped for the playoffs to have begun again. The Hurricanes as well, they were really putting on a clinic on how not to kill penalties against the Caps, as there were numerous occasions where they left the league's leading goal scorer all alone on what we like to call Ovechkin Island over in the left face-off circle. It was really just kind of ridiculous and hilarious, and I just couldn't believe how wide open they were leaving him. He was allowed to just kind of fire away for most of the first period from there. And, of course, he made them pay with the goal that he got on the Capitals' second power play. So not really sure what the Canes are doing there, kind of leaving them all alone. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for them. It definitely did not work out for them in game number 1. I'm sure they'll be changing that up in the second game, but we should also mention as well that the reason why they were kind of leaving Ovechkin wide open like that is because they realized on the Capitals' first power play of the game that if you try too hard to cover Ovechkin, then Backstrom or Kuznetsov or somebody else is going to get open. Of course, on the Caps' first power play of the series, Kuznetsov finds Backstrom down low, and that kind of opened everything up on the power plays that followed that, because once the Canes had realized that Backstrom can also score, then, you can't really have 2 guys 2 out of 4 guys on a 5-on-4 penalty kill. You can't really have 2 out of 4 guys covering Ovechkin. So that opened Ovechkin up a lot, and I think we're probably going to be seeing a lot of Ovechkin firing away from the left faceoff circle in this series, if that's the way that the Canes are going to be killing penalties. So like I said, I'm sure that if they have half a brain in their heads, they're going to change it up for game number 2. But the Caps, too good, too talented, they'll figure out a way around it, just as they always do. So at the end of the first period, it was 3-0 for your Washington Capitals. Nothing much happened in the second period, really. The Canes took quite a few shots at the net. They outshot the Caps 11-4 in the second period, but Braden Holtby stood tall. Should mention as well that we talked about it in our series preview. The Canes take a lot of shots, but the Caps, for the most part, keep them to the outside. Holtby was called upon, I would say, just a few times in this game to make the big save, and he did make them, which is the good news. But yeah, for the most part, the Caps keeping the Canes to the outside for much of the game anyway. But then we go to the third period, and things do get a little bit dicey in the third period before the Caps finally decided to lock it down. Andrei Svechnikov, he scores a couple of goals for the Hurricanes to make it 3-2. And the Canes were given 3 power plays as well, but thankfully they could not convert on any of them. Braden Holtby, he was really a stud in this game. Like I said, it wasn't so much the quantity of the big saves, but it was just kind of more so the timing of the big saves that he did have to make. There were a few moments in the game where it was probably, we were really going to be in trouble if he didn't stop the puck, and he was called upon to make some big saves, and he made those big saves when we needed him to. So Holtby was very, very good in this game. Overall, he stopped 27 out of Carolina's 29 shots, and like I said, he was huge on the penalty kill as well. And the Capitals' penalty kill was definitely a huge difference maker in this game, especially at the end of the game. The Canes had 2 power plays in the final 8 minutes of the game to try and tie it, but the Caps stifled both opportunities. It was really just great work on the penalty kill by everyone involved. Carl Hagelin, he's a total beast out there. I love that pickup for us. He's going to make such a big difference in these playoffs. Braden Holtby, I already said, he was a complete stud, especially on the penalty kill when he was called upon to make some big saves. And Nicklas Backstrom. Nicklas Backstrom was an absolute beast in this game. Not only did he score the first 2 goals of the series, but defensively, he was an absolute animal. He made 2 huge blocks at the end of the game with the Caps shorthanded to preserve the lead for the home team. He dropped a Canes player on his ass, and then he got the clear for the Caps as well. He was just an animal, and he is my number 1 star of game number 1 for sure. So the bad news for the Caps is that if we're being honest with ourselves, they didn't play very well in this game. But the good news for the Caps is that they didn't play very well in this game, and yet they still got the win. So wins are obviously all that matters at this time of the year. There are really no moral victories, and it almost doesn't matter how you get the wins as long as you get them. But at the same time, it's comforting to me to know that the Caps still obviously have another 2 or 3 or even 4 gears that they can get to, and they can ratchet it up still. So the difference in this game definitely was the special teams, as the Caps made their power plays count, scoring twice with the man advantage, while the Canes went scoreless on their 3 opportunities, as the Caps' penalty kill was perfect. I should give a shout out as well to Brooks Orpik, because he was as well a complete animal in this game. Not only his work on the penalty kill, but laying out monster hit after monster hit after monster hit. Everybody gripes about Orpik's play during the regular season a little bit, but the regular season is a grind. It's a long season. It's 82 games. He's obviously an older player at this point in his career. But for me, I always know come playoff time, I want the guy on my team, because he always takes it up about 5 notches in the playoffs, and he was a beast in this game. I think we can expect much more of that from Orpik as the games go on here as well. And I thought goaltending as well was a difference in this game. Mrazek, I don't know that he can be blamed on any of the goals. I would say, he wasn't very good in the first period, but he lets in 3 goals, right? But the quality of the chances that the Caps were getting against him were so high. Like, I don't know that any of those goals you can really blame on him. Maybe he could have stopped 1 or 2 of them, but I think most goalies probably aren't going to. So, again, like I said on the first goal that people are talking about, maybe he could have or should have stopped that one. Like, it was a perfect shot. It was a screamer of a shot from Backstrom. And not only, like I said, not only the shot itself, but he used the Canes player as a screen, and he did it perfectly. As a goalie myself, I know it's very hard to stop those ones because you don't see the puck until it's pretty much past your shoulder already, which is exactly what happened to Mrazek there. So I don't know that he could have, or maybe I should say I don't know that he should have stopped any of the Capitals' goals, but overall the numbers aren't very good. He wasn't very good in the first period for sure. You don't want to give up 3 goals on the road in the first period of a playoff series, so that for sure he would want to improve on that. And then meanwhile at the other end, Holtby made some big saves and kept it to 2 goals against, which Braden Holtby has always said, as long as he's keeping it at 2 goals against, that's a pretty good number. You give your team in front of you a very good chance to win the game, especially when you play for the Washington Capitals, and they do have so much offensive firepower. You pretty much know if you keep it to 2 goals against or less per game that your team's going to get the win for you. So I thought goaltending did make a difference in this game, especially, like I said, the timing of Holtby's saves. There were some key moments where he made big saves. Although I should say that Peter Mrazek as well, like there were opportunities early in the third period for the Caps. They easily could have gone up 4-0, 5-0. They had a couple of breakaway opportunities. First, Nick Dowd got a chance. Mrazek stopped him, and then Carl Hagelin on the breakaway had a really good chance, and Mrazek stopped that one as well. So could have easily been 5-0 early in the third period, but Mrazek made a couple of big stops and allowed his team to stay in it. And they eventually made it 3-2, so they got pretty close thanks to those big saves from Mrazek. But overall, I would say that goaltending was one of the differences, just because of Holtby made, one more big save than Mrazek did, which is so often the way that it goes in the playoffs. Goaltending always plays a huge part, and very glad that we have Braden Holtby on our team. Overall, this game played out much the way that we predicted it to when we did our series preview, with the Hurricanes racking up more shots on net, but the Caps making good on more of their opportunities and scoring more actual goals, and thus winning the game. That's pretty much how we expected it would go. Like we talked about in our series preview, the Hurricanes, they take a lot of shots at the net, but they're not very good at actually converting on those chances, whereas the Caps, they kind of bide their time, wait for the best scoring chance to present itself. They break down the opponent's defense, and then they find a lane, get themselves a really good chance, and more often than not put it in the net. So that's exactly how this one played out. The Canes took more shots, the Caps scored more goals, and the Caps win the game. So I will say it again, Corsi is not your king. Elsewhere around the league, we had, on the first day of the Stanley Cup playoffs, we had a huge upset. Columbus Blue Jackets, they come back. They were down 3-0 in the first period at Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay against the league-leading Lightning. So it was kind of the same as the Caps go up 3-0 on the Hurricanes. The Lightning as well, they had gone up 3-0 on the Blue Jackets. The difference is the Blue Jackets come all the way back. The Lightning kind of folded a little bit. Blue Jackets tie the game and then eventually get the game winner, courtesy of Seth Jones. So the Blue Jackets, they win game number 1, 4-3 on the road over the President's Trophy winners, which is really funny to me because Tampa Bay fans so cocky before the playoffs began. We as Capitals fans, we've been there, done that. We've won 3 President's Trophies before. We know that it doesn't mean jack squat when you get to the playoffs, but Tampa Bay, it's their first President's Trophy, their first one ever, so you can kind of understand that they're a little bit too excited about it, and they kind of thought that the Stanley Cup should just be awarded to them before the playoffs had even begun. So now they've kind of flipped the script. I saw on social media there's Tampa Bay Lightning fans already burning their jerseys in bonfires, and this is after dropping just the first game of the first round. So I'm sure that this is going to be an interesting one for all of us to watch. Very entertaining. So again, hilarious to me that first of all, that they lose the first game of their first round after being so cocky, and secondly, that they're already giving up on their team after losing just the first game of the first round. Also on the first day of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it was a good day for Capitals fans as the New York Islanders, Barry Trotz and the New York Islanders, take out the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-3 in overtime. That obviously makes me very happy. And the St. Louis Blues as well, they pick up a win on the road over the Winnipeg Jets. I actually, for my NHL bracket, I have St. Louis taking out the Jets in 6 games. I just think that St. Louis has been playing so good over the last half of the regular season. They're a real threat, and Winnipeg has played so poorly down the stretch, really ever since the calendar flipped to 2019. So I think Winnipeg could be in some trouble. I don't think they're playing very well at all. And their confidence has to be a little bit shaken, especially after dropping the first game there. Dallas Stars as well. They pull off a big win on the road in Nashville against the Predators 3-2. So Dallas leads that series 1-0. San Jose Sharks. Again, it was a good day for Caps fans. The San Jose Sharks beat up on the Vegas Golden Knights 5-2 in San Jose. And Ryan Reeves didn't do anything all game, then got himself ejected at the end of the game, just pulling his usual antics. He doesn't provide any type of an impact during the actual game and then gets himself thrown out at the end. So that's par for the course. And then obviously we know that the Caps win. The Maple Leafs, they get a win on the road in Boston against the Bruins. They win 4-1. The last goal was an empty netter by John Tavares at the end of the game. Mitch Marner scored 2 goals. He actually got a penalty shot, and he scored on that, so that was one of his 2. Nylander, who it feels like hasn't scored at all this year, he gets a goal as well, so the Leafs pulling off a little bit of an upset in game number 1, taking down the Bruins. And then we had the Calgary Flames with a 4-0 shutout over the Colorado Avalanche. Mike Smith was very, very good in that game. He made 26 saves, and many of them of the huge variety. Actually, he had a number of glove saves that were just ridiculous. I don't know actually why Colorado kept shooting for his glove, because it was clearly on fire, and yet they kept trying to shoot there. So we'll see if they change it up for game number 2. That's everything that's happened so far for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we have another big game coming up for the Capitals on Saturday. It'll be an early start. It's an early afternoon game, so make sure that you all mark that on your calendars. You don't want to miss it. If you're going to the game, you don't want to be late getting there. I also heard there's some type of cherry blossom parade or something going on in Washington, D.C., so travel might be a little bit affected if you're heading down to Capital One Arena for the game. Just make sure you give yourselves plenty of time to get there. We don't want you to miss the start of the game. And that will be game number 2. It's the last home game in this little stretch here for the Caps before they head onto the road for the next 2 games in Carolina. So Caps obviously looking to go up 2-0 in this series, and hopefully for me, I want to see them play a little bit better than they did in game number 1. Get going a little bit more. I'd like to see, there was quite a bit of hitting in game 1, but I'd like to see more from the Caps there. We know that they're a very physical team, and they're capable of bringing a lot more than they did in game number 1. So I'm sure it'll get ratcheted up here as we continue on with this series. But yeah, hopefully the Caps going to play a lot better in game number 2 and get another big win. Let's go Caps!